In 1985, Anne of Green Gables touched the hearts of millions of viewers with its pure and deeply human story about young Anne Shirley. But 39 years have passed, and the cast who once enchanted us now carry very different stories. Some departed in tragedy, some struggled in the shadows of illness, while others found overwhelming success. What really happened after the spotlight, when everyone thought they were destined for greatness? Let's discover their real names and honor the legacies they left behind. Let's go. Colleen Dewhurst as Marilla Cuthbert. At 61, Colleen Dewhurst portrayed Marilla Cuthbert in Anne of Green Gables, 1985. The role of a stern woman whose exterior concealed a deep reservoir of love moved millions of viewers. That success became a final laurel in her brilliant career. Yet fame was never enough to mask the lingering wounds of her private life. Colleen Dewhurst was born on June 3, 1924, in Montreal, Canada, and her childhood was marked early by her parents' separation. The fracture in her family forced little Colleen to grow up without the warmth of affection. As an adult, she searched for love as salvation, but what she found instead was tragedy. Twice married and divorced from actor George C. Scott, her life became a long chain of pain. Accusations of infidelity, heated arguments, and violent conflicts turned marriage into a battlefield from which she always emerged with a shattered heart. The collapse of her marriages left Colleen with deep emotional scars, and tragedy struck even harder when illness arrived. In her final years, she was diagnosed with cervical cancer. Tragically, her religious faith led her to refuse medical intervention, leaving her to endure relentless physical torment. The woman who once stood tall on stage now writhed in the darkness of disease, fighting alone, exhausted, yet still trying to maintain a strong exterior. Each passing day was a battle, and Colleen seemed to know there was no way back. On August 22, 1991, Colleen Dewhurst drew her final breath at her home in South Salem, New York, ending a 67-year life filled with sorrow. Her net worth was estimated at about $5 million, but that figure pales in comparison to the image of a woman who lived, loved, and endured to the very end. Megan Follows as Anne Shirley. Megan Follows beat out more than 3,000 applicants to win the role of Anne Shirley in the television adaptation of Anne of Green Gables, 1985, when she was only 17. Her portrayal of the stubborn, dreamy, red-headed girl immediately became an icon for an entire generation of viewers. The role not only propelled Megan to the height of fame, but also bound her tightly to a spotlight she could never easily escape, turning her youth into a whirlwind both radiant and suffocating. Megan Follows was born on March 14, 1968, in Toronto, Canada, into an artistic family where all three of her siblings pursued creative careers. What seemed like a complete and supportive upbringing soon veered into turbulence when she entered marriage. In 1991, she wed photographer Christopher Porter and had 2 children, Lila Ann and Russell. But only 5 years later, the marriage ended, leaving Megan a single mother. The pressures of career, combined with the enormous shadow of Anne Shirley, drove her into repeated bouts of mental crisis, forcing her to confront depression and self-doubt. The failed marriage left not only emotional scars, but also periods of intense stress. The haunting association with a single role made her confess more than once that she felt trapped between public expectations and real life. She struggled to redefine herself, seeking escape through other roles and later directing work. Each step forward felt like a battle to break free from the golden cage of early fame, where personal freedom was always sacrificed for the immortal image of Anne Shirley. Today, Megan Follows is 57 years old and still active in the entertainment industry. She continues acting, directing, and producing artistic projects, gradually proving herself beyond the shadow of Anne. Her net worth is estimated at about $2 million, primarily from her work in film, television, and voice acting. Richard Farnsworth as Matthew Cuthbert. When Richard Farnsworth, at the age of 65, he transformed into Matthew Cuthbert in the film Anne of Green Gables, 1985. The gentle, quiet, but loving farmer character became an immortal symbol of the small screen. The warmth in Matthew's eyes and his quiet sacrifice made viewers believe that Farnsworth put his whole heart into the role. However, behind that gentle image was a long life filled with pain that few could imagine. Richard William Farnsworth was born on September 1, 1920, in Los Angeles, California, into an ordinary working-class family. His youth was associated with the profession of stuntman, risking his body in fierce scenes for more than 3 decades to make a living. His personal life seemed stable when he married Margaret Hill in 1937 and had 2 children. But that happiness that lasted nearly half a century was shattered in 1985 when Margaret died of illness. The loss dealt a fatal blow to Farnsworth's spirit, turning his later life into a series of days of depression and loneliness, even as he reached the heights of his career. The emotional pain had not yet subsided when fate dealt him a harsher test. In 1999, Farnsworth was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which quickly metastasized to his bones. The severe pain gradually weakened his body, and his spirit fell into despair. The man who had once ridden horses, shot guns, and performed countless dangerous scenes on screen was now imprisoned in constant physical pain. He knew that this disease could not be defeated, and his daily existence was only a torment between pain and memories of loss. On October 6, 2000, Richard Farnsworth chose to end his journey of suffering with a gunshot wound at his ranch in Lincoln, New Mexico. Farnsworth's net worth is estimated at $3 million, but his greatest legacy is the memory of a man who lived, loved, and suffered to the end. Patricia Hamilton as Rachel Lynde. Patricia Hamilton stepped onto the screen as Rachel Lynde in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, when she was 47 years old. The sharp-tongued, gossiping, but deeply caring neighbor became etched in viewers' memories, making Hamilton a familiar face not only in the entire film series but also in Road to Avonlea. That brilliant career, along with prestigious awards, turned her into an icon of Canadian stage and television. But behind Rachel Lynde's firm voice and proud gaze was a private life filled with painful scars that the public rarely knew about. Patricia Ruth Hamilton was born on April 27, 1937, in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. She found love with actor Leslie Carlson and married him in 1966. But that happiness quickly fell apart when the marriage ended in divorce only a few years later, leaving her to raise her son, Ben Carlson, alone. The loneliness was made harsher by the pain of a miscarriage, a tragedy that haunted her for life. Behind the curtain, the strong woman on stage often collapsed into periods of emotional exhaustion and financial struggle, clinging to her work as the only way to survive. The wounds of lost love were compounded by years of declining health. Patricia Hamilton was known for her tendency to overwork, devoting herself to the stage so much that she neglected her own well-being. Chronic arthritis gradually robbed her of the ability to perform, forcing her to step away from the lights she once considered her reason for living. The woman who once made audiences laugh at Rachel Lynde's sharpness now quietly endured physical pain, while her spirit bore deep scars from the tragedies of family loss. Her life, therefore, was always intertwined with both glory and darkness, between the sound of applause and the silence of long nights. On April 30, 2023, just 3 days after her 86th birthday, Patricia Hamilton took her final breath at a nursing home in Stratford, Ontario. Her net worth was estimated at around $1 million, a small figure compared to the spiritual legacy she left behind. Jonathan Crombie as Gilbert Blythe. At 19, Jonathan Crombie was cast as Gilbert Blythe in Anne of Green Gables, 1985. His portrayal of the intelligent, gentle, and devoted young man melted the hearts of millions, turning Gilbert into a model of pure love for an entire generation. The glow of that role launched Crombie's name into the spotlight, but it also cast a shadow so large that his later artistic path felt heavy and difficult to escape. Jonathan Crombie was born on October 12, 1966, in Toronto, Ontario, into a distinguished family. His father, David Crombie, was once the mayor of Toronto and later served in the federal cabinet. Yet his personal life stood in stark contrast to that prestigious background. Crombie never married, never had children, and chose to live quietly for many years. It wasn't until his 40s that he openly came out as gay, but the long years of hiding left him with profound loneliness. His career after Gilbert never reached a new peak, forcing him to face both financial difficulties and deep doubts about himself. The silences in Crombie's life slowly became haunting. He often lived in solitude, turning more toward stage plays and small roles. But he never found another milestone as defining as Gilbert. Audiences continued to call him Gil, but that very association made him feel trapped at times. His private, withdrawn life and a stagnant career created a quiet pressure that left his spirit increasingly weary and empty. While viewers remembered him as a radiant young man, in reality, Crombie endured shadows few ever saw. On April 15, 2015, Jonathan Crombie suddenly passed away at the age of 48 in New York due to a brain hemorrhage, a shocking and unexpected death that stunned fans. His family chose to donate his organs, turning tragedy into his final act of kindness from a man who had lived so quietly. His net worth was estimated at only about $500,000, far less than the spiritual legacy left behind by his unforgettable role as Gilbert Blythe. Skyler Grant as Diana Barry. Skyler Grant was only 15 when she stepped into the role of Diana Barry in Anne of Green Gables, 1985. As Anne Shirley's gentle and loyal best friend, her performance gave Grant a special place in the hearts of fans and opened up a promising artistic path. Yet that teenage fame also trapped her in a whirlwind of pressure, where the towering shadow of her family's reputation and the sudden glare of stardom made her journey into adulthood heavy and complicated. Skyler Grant was born on April 29, 1971 in Los Gatos, California, into a distinguished family tied to both history and the arts. Her famous aunt was screen legend Katharine Hepburn. That bloodline meant she grew up under constant expectation and comparison. In 1995, she married Jeff Krasno and had 2 daughters, but the marriage eventually fell apart, leaving behind emotional wounds difficult to heal. The weight of family expectations, combined with the uncertainty of her career, often forced Grant to wrestle with herself, torn between maintaining the image of an actress and longing for a more peaceful escape. After leaving the screen, Skyler Grant faced new challenges when she turned to yoga as her path to salvation. Physical injuries from her youth and emotional scars forced her to practice with painful perseverance just to remain steady on the mat. Over time, yoga became not only a career, but also a therapy to mend the cracks in her soul. From a child actress swallowed by the spotlight, Grant learned to start over, seeking balance for herself. Today, at 55, Skyler Grant continues to work as a yoga instructor in New York. She runs her practice quietly, far removed from the pressures of fame and her powerful family name. Her net worth is estimated at around $1 million, a modest sum, yet enough to sustain a simple and peaceful life. Jackie Burroughs as Mrs. Amelia Evans. Jackie Burroughs was 46 when she appeared in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, as Amelia Evans, a small but layered role. Though her screen time was brief, her sharp presence and piercing gaze left a lasting impression. Amid the sweetness of Anne Shirley's world, Amelia Evans stood out as a thorny piece, reflecting the turbulent reality of Burroughs' own life. From there, both her artistic journey and her private fate unfolded into a tragedy few could have predicted. Jackie Burroughs was born on February 2, 1939 in Southport, England, and emigrated with her family to Canada in 1951. Her uprooted childhood left her with feelings of displacement and insecurity, but it also fueled a fierce determination to prove herself. Her artistic journey began on small stages, where she poured passion into her performances while swallowing unspoken loneliness. The emotional scars of her past gave her a strong stage presence, yet also planted shadows in her personal life that never faded. Her marriage to Zal Yanofsky, co-founder of the band The Lovin' Spoonful, seemed to promise happiness, but lasted only 2 years before collapsing. The breakup left Burroughs a single mother, carrying the weight of raising her child while battling a sense of failure. That loneliness grew into chronic depression, and she turned to cigarettes for comfort. The habit slowly eroded her health, even as the stage demanded she appear strong. This contradiction defined her later years, radiant on screen, yet haunted behind the curtain. On September 22, 2010, Jackie Burroughs died in Toronto at the age of 71 after stomach cancer claimed her final strength. She left behind a net worth of about $800,000, a modest figure compared to the vast artistic legacy she created. Her passing closed the life of a gifted actress and left audiences with deep sorrow. Charmian King as Aunt Josephine Barry. Charmian King appeared in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, as Aunt Josephine Barry, the wealthy and stern aunt who, at 60, offered Anne unexpected sympathy and support. Her performance left a deep impression, making Aunt Josephine an essential figure in Anne's coming-of-age story. Yet behind the glow of that role, Charmian King's real life was marked by sorrows that shocked anyone who came to know them. Charmian King was born on July 25, 1925, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Her childhood was far from the fairy tales audiences saw on stage. She grew up in a household defined by discipline and expectations, where affection was often overshadowed by strictness. As a girl, she learned to repress her feelings, seeking comfort in art and her earliest performances. That pressured upbringing planted in her both an intense desire to express herself freely on stage and a fragile soul haunted by emptiness. Her marriage did not bring the peace she longed for either. In 1962, she married actor Gordon Pinsent and had a daughter, but their life together was full of invisible distance. Illness, career pressures, and differences in temperament often left her feeling isolated even within her own home. During those years, King endured both loneliness and declining health, worsened by her long-standing smoking habit. Each day was a struggle to maintain the proud image of a performer while silently bearing pain and fatigue she could not voice. On January 6, 2007, Charmian King took her last breath in Toronto after severe complications from emphysema, closing her life at the age of 81. Her net worth was estimated at about $700,000, a modest figure compared to the artistic legacy she left behind. Marilyn Lightstone as Miss Muriel Stacy. At 45, Marilyn Lightstone appeared in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, as Muriel Stacy, the modern, strict yet deeply humane school teacher who brought a new spirit to the village of Avonlea. Her portrayal of a decisive woman willing to challenge outdated conventions became unforgettable to audiences everywhere. But beyond that luminous role, Marilyn's real life carried personal pain the spotlight could never reveal. Marilyn Lightstone was born on June 28, 1940, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. She grew up in a Jewish family, where heavy expectations and strict discipline shaped her childhood. The young girl sought escape through knowledge and art, but deep inside she always carried a sense of loneliness and a longing to be understood. That loveless childhood left her with a fragile soul, so that later, in every step of her career, Marilyn shone brilliantly on stage while privately carrying an unshakable solitude. When she entered marriage, Marilyn hoped to find the stability her childhood had lacked. Yet her first marriage quickly ended in divorce, leaving wounds that never truly healed. Separation pushed her into long years of loneliness, where the brighter her fame became on stage and screen, the emptier her heart felt. Many times, she fell into spirals of self-doubt, questioning whether she was worthy of love at all. That sense of abandonment slowly drove her away from major roles, leading her instead to painting, photography, and voice work as a form of escape. Now 85, Marilyn Lightstone continues to remain active in the arts through voice work, writing, and painting. She has long shared her life with her partner, Moses Zenamer, yet the memories of past heartbreaks have never disappeared. Her net worth is estimated at about $1.50 million, a modest sum compared to a lifetime of artistic devotion. Cedric Smith as Reverend Allen. When Cedric Smith was 42, he took on the role of Reverend Allen, the stern yet warm minister who stood as a symbol of morality and compassion in Avonlea in Anne of Green Gables, 1985. Though not a major role, it made audiences remember Smith as an actor of depth, bringing quiet steadiness to the dreamy world of Anne Shirley. Yet behind that dignified image was a private life filled with turbulence and hidden wounds. Cedric Smith was born on September 21, 1943, in Bournemouth, Hampshire, England, before emigrating with his family to Canada at the age of 10. His childhood was marked by instability as he adjusted to a new country, and the feeling of displacement soon became part of his soul. His artistic journey began in music. He left school in 1961 to become a folk singer. But behind the passionate voice was a young man trying to fill the emotional void left by an affectionless childhood. His marriage to actress Catherine Disher once gave Cedric Smith hope for a peaceful home. But when Disher was diagnosed with cancer in the 1990s, the years of caregiving and eventual loss devastated his life. Her death plunged Smith into despair, where he turned to alcohol as his only escape from grief. The trauma of loss strained his relationship with his daughter, as emotional distance grew wider with time. The brilliance of his career could not conceal his constant battles with depression, leaving him a gifted artist broken in his personal life. By 2025, Cedric Smith is 82 years old, rarely appearing in public, living quietly and still fighting the ghosts of the past. His net worth is estimated at about $1 million, mostly from acting and music, but his greatest legacy remains in the depth of his performances, especially the kind-hearted Reverend Allen of Anne of Green Gables. Jane Eastwood as Mrs. Hammond. Jane Eastwood played Mrs. Hammond, the cold and harsh woman who mistreated Anne during her earliest years in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, when she was 39 years old. Her role added a sharp edge to the story, reflecting the cruelty of the outside world while highlighting Anne Shirley's resilience. But like her character, Jane Eastwood's real life has not been smooth, carrying shadows that are difficult to put into words. Jane Eastwood was born on December 17, 1946, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She grew up in a middle-class family, spending her childhood in Hoggs Hollow and her summers in Muskoka. Though her upbringing was not harsh, adulthood brought its own burdens. Her artistic path showed early promise, but to sustain her career, she constantly had to struggle with small roles and voiceover work, just enough to survive in the industry. Those struggles planted seeds of insecurity, making her doubt herself even after she was recognized as one of Canada's most familiar screen faces. Greater tragedy came in her personal life. Jane Eastwood was married to David Flaherty, a devoted husband who later passed away, leaving a void in her heart that could never be filled. She had children, but family relationships were at times strained, leaving her unable to find complete peace at home. Behind the stage lights and camera, she faced long, lonely nights, carrying the pain of loss and a lingering sense of emptiness. Today, Jane Eastwood is 79 years old and continues to work in acting and voice work, though no longer holding the central roles of her youth. Her net worth is estimated at about $800,000, a modest figure compared to a lifetime in the arts. Her portrayal of Mrs. Hammond remains etched in memory, a reminder of how cruelty in Anne's early life ultimately revealed her extraordinary strength. Miranda De Pencier as Josie Pye. At 17, Miranda De Pencier appeared in Anne of Green Gables, 1985, as Josie Pye, the jealous, spiteful classmate who constantly stood in contrast to Anne Shirley. Her performance left a lasting impression, not only for the sharpness of the character, but also for her cold presence that made her one of the film's most unforgettable faces. Yet behind the glow of that teenage role, Miranda's real life slowly revealed darker corners few ever knew. Miranda De Pencier was born on August 20th, 1968, in Toronto, Ontario, into a distinguished family with deep artistic ties. Although she grew up in comfort, her childhood was burdened by invisible pressures. From an early age, she bore the heavy weight of family expectations and the constant scrutiny of being compared with her successful father in publishing and her brother who worked in film. Those seemingly calm years instead left Miranda with a deep sense of alienation, making her long to break free but never knowing where to go. Her later marriage only deepened the wounds of youth. Miranda once hoped to find stability in love, but her marriage ended in divorce after only a few years. The separation threw her into long years of loneliness, haunted by the pain of abandonment and relentless self-doubt. That emotional shock pushed her away from acting, leading her instead to a career behind the camera as a producer and director, a way of reclaiming control in a world where she once felt like nothing more than a pawn. By 2025, Miranda De Pencier is 57 years old and continues to work as a producer and director, recognized for projects such as The Grizzlies and the series Anne with an E. Her net worth is estimated at about $2 million, but no amount of money can measure the pain and sacrifices she has endured. Sean McCann as Dr. O'Reilly. Sean McCann was 50 when he portrayed Dr. O'Reilly, a minor but memorable figure representing care and community in Avonlea in Anne of Green Gables, 1985. With his calm demeanor and seasoned gaze, he left a strong impression on audiences, despite limited screen time. Yet behind that composed image was a life filled with unexpected tragedy. Sean McCann was born on September 24, 1935, in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. He grew up in a strict environment and even prepared to become a priest at St. Peter's Seminary. But what seemed like a sacred path soon shifted when he chose the arts, carrying with him both discipline and a longing for freedom. Those inner struggles of youth marked him deeply, a man who worked hard to project strength while inside remaining fragile and vulnerable. Marriage and family became the greatest tragedies of his life. McCann married twice, but both marriages ended in heartbreak, leaving behind wounds that never healed. He fathered 5 children, but in 2010, one of his sons took his own life, leaving a devastating void in the heart of the aging actor. That loss, combined with years of alcoholism, turned his private life into a spiral of suffering. His career continued, awards came his way, yet in the shadows he was left only with loneliness and bitterness. On June 13, 2019, Sean McCann passed away in Toronto at the age of 83, closing a long journey of both triumph and tragedy. His net worth was estimated at about $600,000, a modest sum for a man who devoted his life to more than 150 roles. Nearly 4 decades have passed, and Anne of Green Gables, 1985, remains a cherished memory. Yet the fates of its cast leave us heavy-hearted. Some found peace, some left in tragedy, and others still struggle against the shadows of life. Do you believe the stories behind the screen are even more haunting than the film itself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit subscribe to follow more tragic journeys of the stars you once loved.